You know what I mean? The 2-of version.
Yeah, I'm not such a big fan of the Highlander Priest, I will say, but I am a big fan of s8ris. He's one of the players that I have the oldest relationship to in Hearthstone. I was casting with him way back in the day, before anyone knew who I was, unlike now, obviously. When we were casting, you know, to like 5 people or something way back in the day. And he's just one of the loveliest people that I've ever, you know, got to know in the Hearthstone scene. I'm really, really glad that he is still going along here, doing fairly well at some of the Masters tours. No breakout performances quite yet, but flying the flag as the lone player left from Lithuania, grinding out these Masters tours. I'm really, really glad that he's getting some good results now.
I think though as well, that's it, right? No blowout performances, but look at these. Masters Tour Montreal, 6-3. Asia Pacific, 6-3. Jönköping, 7-2. You know, like, these are not, you know, just, you know, 0-2s and out sort of thing, are they? These are almost their performances, and who knows, maybe the last one of the year is the one where he actually gets there. But let's dive straight in. While we're chatting, the players are ready for their game number 1. Both players 3-0, so yet again, s8ris having a great start to this Masters tour. It's going to be Rogue kicking off for him, and I believe that was going up against NoHands' Druid.
Yeah, a matchup that we've been talking about more and more, feeling like it's edging towards Rogue's favor. Obviously, both decks have been hit with nerfs since Scholomance was released, with Secret Passage only giving you 4 cards instead of 5, and then Guardian Animals kind of being hit a bit harder, in my opinion, ratcheted up to 8 mana instead of 7. And I think, if anything, that just pulls the Rogue even in more favor, even to an even more favorable position, I should say, sorry, due to how difficult it is for Druid to answer either their tall boards in the form of Questing and Edwin, or a lot of the time, actually, their wide boards can get the job done, with Evil Miscreant pulling a lot of weight in the matchup.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd one, isn't it? Because I do feel like some of the Rogue matchups don't look like they should be good, but they are. Because to me, I would just see, well, what if Druid just ramps and plays some big dudes and then kills you? It's like, right, but the secrets that the Rogue plays, as well as the Blackjack stunners, really do put a massive stop to that, don't they? With the help of course, any Hanar pop-off turns, and there's considerations of counter-spell, of course, even freezing traps and pressure plates that Hunter secrets are. Like, there could be so much of a problem for the Druid to deal with. It's going to be a tough one for NoHandsGamer, I feel. But he does have a good start with that Wild Growth.
He does indeed. s8ris presented with an interesting opportunity in his own right, because obviously s8ris, if the cards fall in the right order, can be disgustingly strong in Rogue, with Backstab, Shadow Step, Secret Passage, Prep, all those many, many cheap cards coming together. Madame Lazul was like the lower ceiling but higher floor option. It's never going to be bad to go for the Madame Lazul and just try and snipe maybe a ramp card to go for on the following turn. But I like the optimism that s8ris is showing here. s8ris could be a very powerful card if he maneuvers it correctly.
Yeah, though it is just going to be a pretty straightforward underbelly fence there. Just a nice early 3-4 with the help, of course, of having that s8ris in his hand. No hands. He got the Wild Growth, but he didn't get the Overgrowth, so not going to be able to keep ramping up there, and that Guardian Animals is still a way off, even with that Innovate.
The real question now for me is actually the fact that I think s8ris has to deviate off of Evil Miscreant here. What this hand really says to me is Coin Jandis. I think that's by far the highest power spike in terms of development onto the board. So honestly, I was looking at Dirty Tricks plus the play of the One Thief on this turn as well, just to spend all your mana. But he disagrees. He wants to start going wide with the lackeys.
Yeah, the problem for me is using up the Dirty Tricks means that the stunner might well not get any value immediately, or not be available, should I say. Because the Dirty Tricks, you would imagine it's likely to be procced by Druid at this point in the game. And if that's the case, then yeah, okay, get some card draw, but then the stunner's stranded. I imagined it was much more likely going to be the Miscreant this turn if he wasn't saving for Jandis, and instead having then the choice between Lackey or One Thief to follow up with. So I actually quite like this from s8ris.
I am unconvinced. I'll leave it at that. I definitely see the merit for it, and you know, you're absolutely right. It's a much stronger play on this turn, clearly, given that he gets a pretty fortunate outcome with the Witchy Lackey getting a lot of attack on board. Just to me means that he's going to be probably going for Dirty Tricks next turn anyway, and unless it's exactly the Teacher's Pet or the Lake Thresher, he's not going to get much value out of the Stunner then. But I'm willing to reserve judgment for the moment and see how this pans out.
Here though, another low impact turn from No Hands there, which means he pretty much just hands the turn back over to s8ris pretty easily. He's going to be able to pile on even more pressure. He doesn't have to go for the Dirty Tricks. Can go for the Ethereal Lackey with some backup for the One Thief.
Dirty Tricks probably the best card here. At this point, just in general. But given there's already one in hand, the thought of Togwaggle Scheme is interesting at this point. Shuffling some of the power cards back into your deck is worth quite a lot.
Yeah, these discovers now. Went for the Devolving Missiles, which is actually a pretty sick pickup, isn't it, against Druid? When you expect him with this slow start, I think s8ris is expecting No Hands to go off with something strong in soon, such as the Guardian Animals, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty premium here for s8ris to just, like you said, fight back against the Guardian Animals and even get through just a taunt if they throw down something later on is a very, very big deal in its own right, of course.
You know, finally No Hands gets something to work for him there. The Innovate, into Guardian Animals, gets the card draw with the Twilight Runner as well. Even the Teacher's Pet, which, you know, is probably the worst outcome, right? I think he would have liked a Thresher to clean up this whole board, but still not horrible. As long as he got the Guardian Animals off and he got some card draw, I think he was always looking good. Hold off on the Bloom. It does allow him to potentially bloom out the Ysera next turn and then have a follow-up maybe a little bit later on or soon with that Overflow to help out as well. A lot of options now for No Hands, but speaking of options, Derek, s8ris has a couple of cards in his hand right now.
I mean, how do you even want to approach this? Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, I am thinking it's a Questing Adventurer turn, obviously, is like the first port of call, but honestly, it was worth looking at s8ris as well on this turn. Yeah. You can get 2 procs of it here, and it would be pretty good, actually, in all honesty.
Well, you could get 3, right?
3 if you
really
wanted,
to, because you could just bounce the beast that comes off the Teacher's Pet, depending on what it is, of course.
That taunt's awkward. That's pretty awkward. Because you don't want it devolving before you kill the
yeah, you could just
runner.
Bounce it, though, right?
That's true.
Bouncing
the
bear is fine.
Yeah.
Because if they have to pay 4 mana for a 3/3 taunt, like, okay. You know?
I'll take it, yeah. Then in terms of shuffling, if you want to do that quite yet, I guess questing you'd like to have more of in your deck. Like, I was thinking in terms of Secret Passage, questing isn't so good to get off of the passage because you want it beforehand, but it's probably just the best card here to shuffle into your deck.
Yeah. I think even if it was questing or the One Thief would have been decent targets. I did look at Stunner, but obviously you have a generally limited amount of secrets, of course, available to you, so having a few extra Stunners might not pay off. But even the One Thief wasn't bad, but yeah, I like the questing. No Hands is definitely on the back foot now, though, because instead of, you know, going for that Ysera I mentioned, he now just can't really, because he can't allow this questing to live, which is going to slow him down again in this game.
Oh, everything's just so awkward. If he could go for Bloom Ysera and then not be overloaded, he could go Overflow and then Broomstick to rush out all the dragons. Right. But, I mean, I think you're right. It feels so awful to go for it this way. But it does at the very least allow him Bloom Ysera plus Broomstick on the next turn. So he has powerful plays that he's leading up to. This is far from over for No Hands.
I do think from s8ris' point of view, Jandis just looks good. It's, you know, obviously off curve he can play the Feral Cat as well, but you've just seen how awkward these turns have been for your opponent. You've not seen anything great. You've dealt with the Guardian Animals. Just chuck another board down, right? And just say, okay, will this now stick?
And then whether or not you go for the mind games is another question entirely, because You know, there's some pretty big benefit to it. It's not like there's swipe in the deck. They need to be specifically targeting certain minions rather than getting there with splash damage. I think you still probably put it on the 4/4 because you don't want to let your opponent go for a rushing Thresher or a rushing Ysera with the broomstick. But it was kind of interesting.
And again, with a nod to that, you can see the placement there for s8ris, just not giving them the Jandis attack into both big minions, right? So at least now there's got to be one or the other dies to a big Thresher, potentially. It might sound a bit silly to point out, but honestly, the amount of players that don't do this is still pretty shocking to me. I'm included in that list, by the way, but I'm still saying it's pretty surprising.
Yeah, the two real lines I'm seeing are either go for Ysera into the overflow on the next turn, or Ghidra plus overflow on this turn if you think you're dying immediately. And I don't think he's under that much pressure. I think Ysera plus Broom is good enough for the moment to keep him in the game.
I was even going to go with Ventress and just try and delve into what the impact of actually playing Survival of the Fittest that turn would be.
Yeah.
You'd be on 7 mana. See, the problem is, if that bear was just a normal cost, you could actually have the Survival of the Fittest Grizzly, Ghidra, and Broom next turn to snap the board back, which would be pretty cool, but obviously it's a bit too expensive with the Overload.
Wait, I see what you're saying. Sorry, I was left completely confused as to what was going on there. I thought you were saying you play Survival plus Ghidra and the Grizzly all at the same time.
Oh, no, so the next turn.
On this turn, yes.
Yeah.
I see you. I think setting up for the play of...
Overflow?
Yeah, Overflow on the following turn seems pretty powerful.
Yep. Here, though, unless he plays Secret and then goes for the Secret Passage to maybe get Shadow Step, this Ysera is one of those cards that Rogue doesn't actually deal with that well, right? There's not good ways to deal the damage or anything like that, so it's going to be a tough one there. He's going to go dig in with the Secret Passage, get access to a Questing Adventurer there, which was from that Togwaggle scheme we saw in the writing. We're just going to go for that Vendetta just to chuck it out there. Get it used up and can finish off. Okay, didn't go for the Plagiarize, went for the Shot Bot instead, just to go as wide as possible, and he is going to actually kill this Ysera. Not going to allow any Survival of the Fittest, any potential taunt shenanigans to go off. Once again, No Hands is going to be on the back foot here. This is the issue that Derek mentioned earlier. Overflow and Broom is normally what you want from the Ysera post the drawings of the portals, of course, for the dragons. And No Hands doesn't have access to that mana, right? Like he can overflow. He hits only... I'm going to hold it down, so 1. Okay, 2.
Yeah, really just looking
stupid now.
Yeah, really looking for the innovate at the end as he draws all 7 portals in a row.
It was literally the last draw as well, wasn't it?
Yep, just to make you look dumb.
Oh, I was about to say, he only gets the 1 pull. Oh, okay, game.
Whoa, that's insane as well to get the evasive worm right at the end.
Yeah, kills off the Questing, but look at the... I mean, this is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but imagine a Broom on top of this. The game would just be over. It would simply be over. It might already be over, let's be honest, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's looking real rough now for s8ris. Like, he's able to push, what, 9 damage on this turn? So if he gets the perfect cards, maybe s8ris can clear stuff up enough, but I'm not totally seeing it.
Well, he can bounce the Zeraku, right? So at least he doesn't have to worry about filling the board with more 6/6s.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Because maybe he can set up, like, 2-turn, right? If he bounces the Zeraku, and then maybe he can set up some kind of, like, if he plays Miscreant this turn as well, then he can have, like, s8ris, like, backstab, lackey, I don't know, something for the final damage. I don't know, I'm just trying to piece something together here, it's tough.
Yeah, he's got the line of, like, you go s8ris, Plagiarize, and then you play the Stunner, obviously on the Zeraku, then you go Missiles, then backstab. I think this is very, very smart.
Wait. What's the trigger order on this?
I think it's after, right?
Okay,
yeah,
okay, it's good. Okay, cool. I wasn't 100%, and I was like, I don't think a 6/6 was worth 1 damage.
Neither was I, Raven. I was also completely unsure.
Not
Obviously,
really
if he
a
wants
thing you
to
see often.
backstab something, he has to attack face and then backstab his own guy.
Yeah, I guess.
Or he can just hold. Okay, okay.
Well, a very cheap activator for Miscreant, so I guess that's the payoff, but... Yeah, he did go for the Altruist this turn. I did wonder if he could have done it the other way around.
It was awkward. It wasn't as clean as I was kind of thinking it would be at the start, to be fair.
Because the issue here is, on average, that Altruist damage, other than a bit of damage to face, it didn't really achieve anything, right?
Yeah. Mark of Nature, that's a bit more taunt, looking absolutely fantastic. Kael'thas plus survival of the fittest, it's just so strong. Oof. I mean, not quite lethal, but...
Wait, did he just miss lethal?
27.
Could he have done that differently?
I think it was 1 mana off, right?
But he could have just also not played Hydra, right? I didn't recall the start of that.
He played Gidra before, so if he'd gone Gidra...
Yeah.
Maybe it was guaranteed lethal. If he'd gone...
Because he just
Gidra, Hero Power, Mark of the Wild.
Yeah. But he got Mark of the Wild from the spell he discovered, but that was after he played Gidra.
Yeah. No, I think
he could have just not played Gidra first. I don't know. That was a bit weird, but anyway, very close to lethal there, and it's going to be the game regardless. So I'm sure we can look back at that and work it out after after the show. But still, tricky one there. No Hands gets the win though, and that looked almost out of nowhere, and it was off the back, honestly, of those portals, right? That many portals back to back, absolutely huge. Because up until that point, I think s8ris was feeling pretty good. A super delayed Guardian Animals that was then cleaned up pretty nicely, and then pressure on the board with those Quest Adventurers. If it wasn't for that pesky Ysera, I think s8ris would be 1-0 right now.
Yeah, indeed. Very nicely done by NoHands to go for that really nice setup, not letting himself be baited going into the Ysera too early. But on the other side, not letting himself be too scared into playing the Ysera at any point. He realized he had to tank a little bit of damage to be able to get over the finish line. That's exactly what he did, and was rewarded with all those dragons coming through on the final card, just to add insult to injury for s8ris there, and you as well at the end. But for NoHands now, Priest and the Paladin left remaining is an interesting one, because Paladin has got one very, very good matchup left over here against the Demon Hunter. As you can see, plenty of healing effects in the deck here, plenty of ways to fight back against the board. It's very, very difficult for Demon Hunter to take the win here, but 2 very bad matchups against the Rogue and the Mage for the Paladin, so it really depends on what he's lined up against here.
Yeah, it's a tough one. This Paladin list, to me, is now the sort of gold standard, I guess, of what Paladin should look like at this moment in time. This is the list I've played the most of, and it feels quite powerful. The only issue is you have those odd games where you just don't draw the Librams, or you don't draw the Libram reduction, and then the deck just feels significantly worse. But with the injection of some extra card draw, it has become a little bit more consistent than it at least used to be. But, as you mentioned, versus Rogue, it's almost like the Rogue deck is built to beat this specifically, even though this, arguably was existed before anyone was even really playing Libram Paladin.
Yeah, I agree. It's so brutal for the Paladin. I like what you're saying, though, about all the draw and the way that this deck functions very nicely. Like, with Ball Control having just joined the Hearthstone design team, honestly, I would have accepted this deck as his resume, as the original player to come up with this build of the deck. I think it's just so cleverly put together. And even if I'm not necessarily convinced that it is a tier 1 deck at the moment, there's still a lot of raging debate as to that. I think it's a very, very cleverly organized deck, and it's got a lot of powerful stuff that Paladin has been lacking traditionally, which is basically just any kind of reactivity in the mid-game.
But I think that's pretty important as well, right? I mean, we talk about it a lot, obviously, throughout Grandmasters, but in a Conquest format, especially in a big Swiss tournament, you don't necessarily need 4 tier 1 decks, right?
True.
Like, you can bring a tier 2 deck if it does a very specific job. And considering Demon Hunter is the highest represented class in this Swiss, someone's got it at least half right. You know, here's a deck that should be good versus Demon Hunter. Everyone brings Demon Hunter. Great. It's just if it hard loses versus everything else is the problem. But already we are in this game, and NoHands get off to a decent start. The Aldor attendant a little bit late to the party, but that loot hoard are going to help fill the gap. And s8ris, though, again, just look at the difference in the hands. Everything s8ris has just deals with Paladin. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter that Aldor attendant was late to the party, because NoHandsGamer is not invited to the party. It's just s8ris dancing on his own right now, because this is just absolutely disgusting. Already dominance in the early game with this activated underbelly fence, activating the Vendetta as well. It was an insane Pharaoh Cat, and it's not like he's lacking refill. Already with just Wand Thief to get him an extra spell and Secret Passage, I think he's off to a very, very strong start.
It's also, for me, weirdly, one of the matchups that the Rogue Dagger is still relevant in, because I feel like in this meta, the Dagger just, it gets work done, but it's not a big deal. Whereas against Paladin, a lot of the time, if you're not having the best matchup, you try to just stick things to then try and buff, get some damage, even if they die the next turn. You just want to get those attacks in, but the combination of, you know, backstab, Vendetta, bounces with the stunners, and the Dagger, meaning that even like the hero power from the Paladin is countered, makes it even worse to try and deal with. It's so rough.
s8ris with a couple of interesting options here. It's approaching that point where I don't hate the idea of going for an early Secret Passage to try and obviously find the very fortunate outcome of Edwin, but also just Miscreant wouldn't be terrible, or having a questing adventure to just throw down as well. But spending your cards while you have them and then following up with the Secret Passage is like the standard way to approach it, which I think is fine.
Yeah, I think one... s8ris just laughing that box is an option. I feel like he is. He's just like, look, mate. Earlier on today, I cast a Tempo Mage game that had Reno in it, so nothing can surprise me anymore. What's important, I think, to keep an eye on for s8ris' hand is, at any point in the game, does he have no answer to one big minion? Right, like I think that's the key factor that NoHands will have to make happen. Is that if he just gets to land one big minion or big buffs on something, and it sticks for a turn or so, things can happen for the Paladin.
s8ris just getting some pretty great news already, though. Although you're obviously usually pretty devastated to see your opponent go for a Libram of Wisdom, because it's kind of what the whole deck works around. With the Spellbender he generated, that's huge. There's like no other spells in the deck that target things apart from buff, so he's almost guaranteed at some point to be able to steal that if it wasn't looking good enough already.
And if that's not the case, he just has one of his own now.
Sure.
Along with Penflinger, he can start comboing till there's no tomorrow. Be great.
Yeah, that was truly the one thing that s8ris was missing this game, was the ability to say, hey, loser, in client to his opponent. Yeah, there we go. He knows that this is just the absolute nuts in the matchup.
And this is the issue, right? Like, NoHands is going to very quickly get a read. The Lady Liadrin pickup is decent, but it's not going to be good enough for the Spellbender, because it's not like Libram it's not like a Libram of Justice proxy either.
I think I like going for the Devout Pupil. Like, there's bad things that can happen no matter what you do with secrets, so just say it's not Mirror Entity. I'm not playing into that. They probably wouldn't pick it anyway, because it's usually fairly bad in the matchup. I think it's a decent time to throw it down.
Oh, this stun is going to be interesting, though. I am excited to see how s8ris uses this, because he could just wait till the Libram he knows is in hand gets played again, and then just bounce it back, bounce the minion, and then just delete that Libram from the game for NoHands. He's choosing to just play tempo. Wow. I didn't expect this, Darren.
I didn't expect this either. I thought that the Devout Pupil felt like the perfect minion, actually, to kill rather than the Sap. Because, like you say, Sap is fantastic. It deletes a Libram of Wisdom if you have to go for that on the minion, because obviously the minion doesn't die. Any of the other big buffs that come down, it's pretty powerful to just even kill the minion off with Libram of Hope as the big 8/8 taunt as well. I thought that looked like a pretty clean Vendetta turn, maybe with a couple of pen flingers thrown in there.
Yeah, for me, it's because he knew the Libram was there. I'm even more surprised, right? Because sometimes if a Libram's not been played, you're like, oh, well, they don't have it. Let's just play tempo and win before it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does know this one exists. Hand of a Doll is going to help at least get this Spellbender out of the way for No Hands, which means now, again, the Libram is, I'll say, safe with that secret. And I guess maybe that's why he decided to use the Stunner, right? If he has Spellbender to defend against the Libram being played, he felt safe enough.
And it really says a lot about where we're at in the matchup when No Hands can go, yes, I paid 2 mana to give my opponent's minion +2/+2. I'm happy about this.
3/5.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's dreadful for him, obviously, but he gets to play his Librams now, finally, at long last.
Oh, he now has Shadow Step, though. But no secret. He'd have to, like... Oh,
is that really the line? I think I like saving it. Like, you just go Vendetta, coin, Winged Guardian. Yeah. It's insane, right?
So many options.
I guess at this point, I mean, okay, this is what's important to look at. No Hands is not running any of, like, the mega buff cards, right? There's no way to make something truly huge if he lets it stick on board.
That's
so
true.
I wouldn't even mind him just not Vendetta-ing and just letting him have minions and then just playing the massive taunt.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the problem is that if you don't go Vendetta, then it's inactive for the moment, which is not likely to be the case forever, of course, but I think it's worth throwing it down while you can.
It's probably fair,
yeah. And it finally means that with his hand full of just reactive nonsense rather than anything proactive to do, No Hands does find something to do with it, which is, I guess, the positive spin on this pretty disastrous situation. But it means that with the Reborn minions that are knocking about, he's still pretty far behind.
No Broom is huge. I'm trying to work out how to go Lord Barov, Penflinger it, and then, like, Hero
Libram
Power
it?
Libram, and then Penflinger it or something. So basically, I'm trying to work out how to do really stupid things, whereas NoHandsGamer has no doubt already worked out how to do the thing he needs to do.
Yeah. I'm honestly not sure what's more stupid, like Libram of Wisdom being an opposing minion, or your Barov.
Or does he have to just, like, throw one away?
Nah, he's got it. He has to buff something else, right? Or effectively discard the Libram of Wisdom if he wants to clear the board. But, okay, he's not just clearing, he's just tanking the damage.
Well, the thing is, he doesn't tank tons of damage because he did manage to obviously kill off the taunt, the Winged Guardian. So now, if everything goes face, obviously it's not good, but then the Barov just throws the board back in his favor with the trade. I do wonder if s8ris is going to commit this Shadow Step to any of these minions or not. Because there's some good targets. Obviously, One Thief, fantastic. Pharaoh Cat, decent. No target for the Blackjack Stunner. And he already has a Blackjack Stunner in hand. So, very interesting here.
I think the thing is for me that at the moment, everything he does with this hand is kind of like, it's cute and it's delicate, but it's not actually game winning. I want to see if he can go for the secret passage to find... Yeah, exactly. Get Edwin, Miscreant, Jandis, Questing Adventurers, anything to just throw on the board and actually force your opponent to answer, rather than just spending all your mana on pen flingers.
He
just doesn't have time.
I say big minion. But yeah, it does feel like he waited a little bit too long. I definitely do think that could have been a... Oh.
What? Whoa! No!
Okay. I'm going to tell you something right now, Derek. I'm going to go out on a limb and say s8ris has not played a lot of Penflinger before, because That animation takes ages. And if you play Penflinger, you know it takes ages. He just missed, what was that, prep play dries? With a question on board? Insane.
I mean, that's, yeah, like you say, it's one of the things that you pick up if you played a lot of Penflinger, because Secret Passage is infamously one of the longest animations in Hearthstone right now. And honestly, that is disastrous for s8ris at this point. He could have had a 4-4, which was significantly more difficult to deal with.
And he would have had Plagiarize, which if it gets dealt with, s8ris gains 800 cards. It's like 100 Penflingers, a few thousand Librams. Like, why not?
NoHandsGamer is just like, oh yes, I've cleared the board. I feel great right now. And then a literal avalanche of pens just buries him.
Yeah.
Hey, loser!
Yeah. Oh, it was such a bad turn.
Yeah, it really was. And it's tough because I understand what s8ris was going for. I think he ended on the correct play, honestly. I think, like I said, I wanted to see him go for a proactive approach with the Secret Passage. He just needed to do it quicker.
Yeah, it was like one of those things where people say like, oh, well, it was the thought that counts. Well, yeah, he thought about the good play, but he didn't do it, so it doesn't count.
Yeah. I thought I was the best player in the world. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I never thought that. Even I'm not that stupid.
Whereas I, on the other hand... No secret for this Hanar quite yet, and now with that passage gone, there's no digging potential, right? There's no way to get there. There's no way to draw into anything to now progress the game that I feel like s8ris was very heavily winning.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the difference. Obviously, it's we're going to keep coming back to it because he was in such a good position. And even though weirdly it feels like Libra of Wisdom should proc Hanar, I don't know why my brain is telling me that, but some neurons are firing. I know it doesn't. I'm telling my brain, shut up right now, and yet still here I am talking for some reason. But it does not, as you said. And it means that s8ris is just running out of value. He's going to get tempoed out of this game, most likely, at the moment.
My worry and fear is that we're going to see the ever-forbidden Shadow Step on a Penflinger. And look at this board now from NoHands. You can actually build this up and for it to be a pretty significant problem. Devout Pupil's getting very cheap, almost zero, of course. Hand of Adar can get him somewhere. Even this McGurgle is a problem. There's Aldor Truthseeker.
Ooh.
It's insane.
Yeah, we just want maximum tempo on this turn. Like, Aldor, Devout, Penflinger.
Yeah,
honestly,
I want a Penflinger on the board right now.
Yeah. Really? Okay, okay, fair. This does put a lot of damage on board, and I think this is okay.
I guess if this board isn't cleaned up, he wins, obviously, right?
True.
If it is cleaned up, then his Lady Liadrin with the Penflingers, he's probably played enough Librams to make it relevant of like, high Penflinger damage by now, even though some of them have been kind of took out from under him by s8ris this game.
Good point. s8ris here trying to set up a lethal somehow, and Dragonbane might offer it? Is this ever lethal? If he goes Penflinger, Shadow Step, Penflinger... Huh. It's not quite there, is it? Even with the 1 in 5.
What if it's Dragonbane, Hero Power, Shadow Step the Dragonbane to try and do it again next turn for lethal?
Now you're talking my language. I like the sound of that.
Not just anyone sees these kind of plays. These are some high-level stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's something like... It's that, or like you're going Penflinger and Libram and Shadow Step your Hanar and all that nonsense just to get maximum activations on this turn.
Ooh. Well, honestly, the problem is, this Dragonbane being farmed on board doesn't help you in any way. Having a Dragonbane in hand to go again, right? Like...
And now NoHands is going to go as wide on board as he possibly can right now.
The Penflingers are just going to sit on board and be like, no, don't cast another spell. We need it to defend.
I do love a good study session.
Okay, yep, correct.
The Hand of Adals aren't bad either, right?
Pretty good,
4?
yeah. How much damage even is this?
20, I think.
Yes, I agree.
Because
surprisingly
he'll
close.
use them. Yeah, he can't recast the flingers anyway because the 2 mana he spends on the Adal would be the 2 damage from the pen flinger, so that doesn't actually change the equation.
Indeed.
But yeah, it's a lot of damage, so all he has to do now is not die next turn, and it looks like NoHands is going to get away with this one.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, you could probably tell from the way I was casting it. I thought it was pretty much over right from the get-go. s8ris felt like he had such a dominant board presence. And I think while it was in no small part due to the mistake he made where he roped out at the end of the turn with the secret passage, I do think NoHands piloted this very, very well, actually, to orchestrate a situation where he could capitalize on a mistake from his opponent.
Mm-hmm. Wait. Dragonbane? Hero power. 5 goes to face with Penflinger. He then Shadow Steps to go 6. He can then play it again for set, and then Libram. It never gets there, right? Is he one off? If everything went perfect. And that's going to be the game.
Even
NoHands
if it
goes
hit.
up 2-0. So fan, look at that. Oh, he's pumped.
Pumped indeed, and rightly so. He won the matchup that you are not supposed to be winning, and it's a big win for him. The only good matchup, really, for the Paladin was against the Demon Hunter on the other side. And so now getting that out of the way, left with only the Priest, which is the real question mark for us, obviously, given this very, very unique build of the deck. But I cannot wait to see how it works in action with... what is it? The Gift of Luminance, Apotheosis, Psych Split, and Devout Pupils thrown in there as well. This is a quad Devout Pupil lineup.
Yeah, 2 evil conscriptors in there as well, just for the lackey shenanigans too. There's just everything. There aren't enough keycard slots. My question is, why is Embalming Ritual a choice? A card we see from Sethic all the time, when there's good old evil conscriptor and a powered feast in there as well. There is a lot of stuff, and honestly, I'm not gonna lie to anyone, I don't really know how this deck should work, so I think this is going to be NoHandsGamer just giving us a masterclass, or not, potentially, based on how it goes. But he is 3-0 so far in the Swiss, so it must be doing something right, as I imagine it's not facing bans every round.
Yeah, and it's just so classic NoHands. It's just something I love to see from these players, where it's kind of like Jambray, where no matter the metagame, he always has some homebrew pet deck that he's working on that somehow, against all the odds, actually does really well for him. Yeah. Be it Egg Warrior at the start of Ashes of Outlands, which turned out to be the best deck in the metagame once all the nerfs had settled into Demon Hunter. And this time with the Priest, it's obviously not touted as the best deck in the game because most people haven't really seen it, but there's clear theory behind this buff Priest, and there was also Warlock in the middle of that as well, right? Right, exactly. Yeah, he basically created the most recent build of Zoo with a bit of tuning from other players. Yeah, it's just really impressive deck builder. NoHands is one of those players that I will not even ask questions about the deck list. I will get the deck code, load it in, and give it a whirl. And if I'm losing, I know it's because of me and not because of the deck every single time. But let's get into it. Game number 3, NoHands will be off to or continue a great start here and take a quick 3-0 win. For s8ris, I think it's important that he just shakes that turn off and kind of forgets about it, honestly, for now, Derek. It doesn't matter, it's happened. He needs to sort of laser focus in on this match and try not to make any more mistakes. Yeah, s8ris has made a lot of good plays in his time. I imagine he's also made a lot of mistakes in his time, which is the mark of a good player, is being able to shake that off. And like you said, rattling off his results in previous Masters Tours. He is a seasoned tournament grinder here, as well as obviously a ladder grinder, as a lot of our competitors here are. He's got the mental wherewithal to shake this off, no worries. Early choices there from the Cleric with an Apotheosis in hand. I was going to say, I was looking at the Holy Smite or the Shadow Word Death, but I think actually this early on, the Holy Smite feels a little bit more consistent with all those small early minions that get played. Yeah, I actually agree. I think that Death was tempting, as it always is in Rogue, to... Wow, another Winged Guardian. As it always is in Rogue, to fight back against big Edwins, big questings. But your opponent's on the play rather than on the coin. You're already likely to have a lot of board control leading into it. I think this is a very smart move. Ooh. Interesting.
And this is where my knowledge of how this deck's supposed to work, well, is non-existent, because I did wonder if there was a world where No Hands considered holding the Karj. Like, is Karj something you hold for a bigger payoff in this deck because you have the ways to duplicate your own minions and do like weird things like that, or is it something that you still just play out and go for something a little bit more different in the late game? So it's it definitely is interesting seeing, at least so far, what appears to be a normal play style of Priest being played out for now. I think that is going to change in the near future.
Yeah, I think it's a good point you bring up. That's often something you really have to look at Priest, is how greedy are you with your power cards that have a very high ceiling in terms of what they can do. But I think for No Hands, this really screams for a very, very liberal approach to the matchup. You want to be throwing out your cards very, very aggressively onto the board and then resurrect them with Raise Dead, because Raise Dead in hand, Sethek in hand, he's going to be able to generate huge amounts of value. He just needs to make sure he's spending his mana proactively every turn before he gets there.
Ooh. I think he would have wanted one of those being Kaj, and not the Pharaoh Cat there for No Hands. Does get to fish again, gets that Shadow Word Death, does have the answer to Van Cleef.
Yeah, very, very big deal. I mean, you know, while we were praising the Holy Smite, he had the ability to fish for a second option with the Raise Dead as well. So he had all bases covered with this approach again. And as long as he doesn't fall too far behind at this point, ever-present is the Sethek Veil Weaver, now with Gift of Luminance as well, to become fairly sticky.
How much is this worth to you?
s8ris is going to be able to take control of this board, though. Again, Underbelly Fence, getting the job done. I don't know how I feel about that card being inclusion, but I obviously see the value when it gets played like this, and it's just a totem golem with rush for some reason, which is obviously insane. But we've seen this before, where these small pesky boards that Rogue makes are powerful in some matchups, but I do feel they're going to be less powerful in this matchup specifically against this Priest.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for s8ris, I mean, we've been speaking mostly about No Hands because it's kind of the more exciting side of the matchup with the deck we haven't seen much of. But for s8ris, you do need to obviously have the ability to extend and play for value at all times against Priest. But this is a much tempo-heavier build of the deck, so I like just going for aggression wherever possible here in order to make sure that you're not falling behind.
And this is one of the difficulties that players going up against No Hands are going to have. There isn't a refined plan against this list, so you just have to pick an approach and I guess make it up as you go along to an extent, obviously, because it's one of the bonuses of bringing a kind of out of meta deck to a tournament like this is that no one's really prepared for it.
Yeah, s8ris just going to fake it till he make it on this one, and it looks like the approach for this turn is going to have to be just sacking in his entire board if he wants to deal with this, unless he wants to sap it, which sounds truly awful. What
if he Shadow Steps a One Thief? How do you like that one?
Honestly, I think I like just going Secret Passage more on this turn. Like, I don't really see what you're digging for, and this just means you can't kill off the 5/3 then on the other side.
Well, you still can with the dagger, right? It's a worst case.
I guess.
It can still die if you want it to. It might not be as pretty, but...
Okay.
Mirror image, okay. That's not so bad then. It's bailed him out a little bit.
Yep, mirror entity, mirror image. That's fine. Pretty powerful against what the other side is generally trying to do. But I don't know. I still have my questions there. Like, I think just going for maybe trading, like going Secret Passage first and then trading in afterwards, just to try and find something to do right now, leading up into Winged Guardian next turn. I just wanted a slightly more proactive play.
We might be seeing fireworks start.
Oh yes.
No Hands.
You'd love to see
coin tests for counterspell straight away. Now gets the instant news that it's Mirror Entity, and he can just go because that Holy Smite that he picked up earlier just deals with the new Sethek that's on board now.
Yeah, surprisingly tough choice here, given that Spellbender is still intact right now. He decided not to go for Holy Smite, I guess because he really, really wants to kill this Sethek. even if it comes at the cost of giving Reborn to the 1/3 token. And I actually agree with that. I think Sethic is more important to kill than pretty much anything else that can happen in this turn.
Quickly.
It's pretty solid there. s8ris is gonna have his work cut out for him. He can chip away at these Sethics to an extent, but doesn't feel very sure. And now suddenly the Winged Guardian just on curve, weirdly enough, just doesn't even look remotely powerful enough, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't. To the extent where I'm thinking, leading up to prep evocation actually sounds a bit stronger on this turn. Obviously, you know, play out your 0 mana cards plus the Blackjack Stunner, and then just pray that with 6 mana you're given the goods.
Oh, these are so sticky, aren't they, with Reborn? It's like Divine Shield, Reborn, must kill minions. It's like, ugh.
It's pretty brutal, though. It does kind of look, unless you're seeing what his options are, that he is leading up to Winged Guardian. Otherwise, you just start with seeing what your the cards you're given off evocation are.
It's weird, right? I guess the benefit is if you trade, the Winged Guardian can't be targeted, so then there's few minions that No Hands can, like, pop off with, so to speak, anyway. So, maybe
it was really
just one of those turns where it's like, just drop the big powerful thing and hope it's enough.
Yeah, because the line that we were talking about, or I was talking about at least, of Blackjack stunnering the Sethic Veil Weavers did still allow him to pop off with Sethic on the following turn. It just denied 2 mana, which is a pretty big consideration, I think, in terms of the amount of mana they have to work with and how many chances they have to find Shadow Word Death or whatever.
Okay. It's expensive, but it does a pretty good job. Not quite enough right now, but it's a nice way to clear it up next turn, maybe.
Yeah, I think I like going for just maximum minion development on this turn, with, I guess, Dark Prophecy into Evil Recruiter. Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm calling it now. There's going to be shenanigans with the Brewmaster from Raised Dead this game. I don't know what it is, but I bet No Hands already does.
Generous Mummy, immediately regret all your life choices, bounce it back to hand.
Yeah. Top tier play, definitely. Halo again. Okay. s8ris does have options of prepping out the secret, prepping out the evocation, playing 0 mana secret anyway with the plagiarize. Like, all this looks pretty good. He can make plenty of space in hand. The question for me, Derek, is it evocation or is it secret passage this turn?
It's a very good question. If he can, I mean, there's a lot of good things that he can hit off secret passage. Obviously, Edwin is already gone, being the big one, but Jandus would be fairly powerful, I guess, or trying to get a Hanar train rolling. I guess when I say it out, it doesn't sound on average better than what evocation might give you.
Devolving Missiles doesn't look so bad. Well, it mainly reduces health down on board. I guess it's not mind-blowing either.
Kansas Flow, really? Interesting.
There's a Frostbolt in there as well.
What? He's going for it! Okay.
He's late in the day with that rope, though.
Yeah, the spells back to hand is the big one here with evocation plus secret passage. All at once.
I'm just glad we're not going to get any surprises like we did the other week in GM, where all of us were baffled for a good 5 minutes as to what exactly happened, and then we had to just sort of, like, math it out, and we're like, oh, okay, now we understand game mechanics.
How many casts does it take to figure out an intended interaction?
All of them.
Yeah, all of them about half an hour, it turns out. Yeah. And then a reprise of Derek going, wait a second, scrap it all, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, though, now NoHands has the slight worry that I do think he would have felt he was getting ahead in this game, and now there's just a handful of mage spells he has to try and tackle. Not even consider, because you can't even really consider that many different cards, right? But he has to at least try and tackle them.
guess setting up for Psyche Split, you'd have to imagine. He can go attack in and then Circle of Healing, although that doesn't make any sense when I say it. In order to heal up his minion, as it also heals the other side, of course.
On wings of destruction they come.
Ooh, Feast?
Oh, so, like, look, there's a rule. If Soul Mirror is not in your hand, make it be in your hand, is the rule I stick to as priest. Okay, well, Plagiarize isn't going to give s8ris too many cards. Just the Apotheosis and the Cleric is arguably just a horrible 1-mana 1/1 in this deck.
I wonder.
Again, s8ris does have to look at this Brewmaster, but if he has to trade into it, at least with the minions on board, just throws everything away. I have to be Devolving Missiles instead. Looks a lot better to me.
Yeah, exactly. I think Devolving is really the core of this turn, and just trying to set it up as likely as possible to kill off the Panda.
Always love getting Ancient Mysteries as Rogue. Such a sick card. Wait, does he have any secrets
really
left?
No,
he has Ambush, right? He runs an Ambush.
Okay.
I believe he has not played yet.
Pretty big deal, because again, this version of the list from NoHandsGamer, while we've seen the benefit of this version with very powerful tempo plays that put s8ris on the back foot for a little while, the downside is a loss of reactivity, I think we can quite clearly say. And so as soon as your opponent actually starts locking down a board with the ambush, all these minions in play, it's tough to wrestle it back.
And this looks like it could well be a Soul Mirror turn, especially seeing that there's no counterspell now. Because it's just one of those things, right? This board looks awkward. This Winged Guardian honestly has been on the board for too long, as far as No Hands is considers, I think. So I think just press Soul Mirror, get rid of everything. The ambush takes care of itself now. Oh, he's going to go for evasive work. Soul Mirror feels way better here.
Agreed. It kills everything on the other side of the board very, very cleanly. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you just stop trying to do fancy plays and say, let's just get it gone. Right, let's clear everything off. Now No Hands has control of the board. And s8ris is just on pretty much those mage spells in the dream right now. And I think after seeing this turn, or maybe even the opening of this turn, No Hands can get a very good read that there's no Power of Creation, there's no Deep Freeze, you know, there's none of the big minion plays that you can get from some mage spells.
I guess the really interesting thing now is the fact that No Hands, despite playing a version that wants to fight for tempo a lot more, could theoretically go for a kind of semi-fatigue plan in the mid-game, where he just try and starves his opponent of any powerful plays right now.
I think it's
although that has kind of just gone out the window.
Has it?
Secret Passage is a big deal. He can pretty much spend his mana on whatever he wants to for the next few turns.
Well, I was more just meaning with Blackjack Stunners used up and some of the other tricks that s8ris on Rogue has access to. Does the fact that No Hands can potentially like just make so many infinite kind of Death Rattle style minions means he just never loses board in that fatigue fight, therefore he wins?
That sounds like a plan, technically. Yeah, the big one really, I think, for s8ris is that he got Conjurer's Calling not as a proactive play, but actually just as a reactive play. If any minion is buffed up too big, you can just revert it to 2 minions of the original cost, which is, I mean, often pretty powerful if they get the right cards.
That's the thing now, right? Because No Hands with this Polk Elk can then start to get into some of these bigger plays, the Cobalt Spellkin, and at some point Devout Pupil will be involved as well. And if you can start duping them and everything, then it's going to be a bit of a problem to deal with. And it's not like s8ris is particularly setting up on board. The Onyx Mage Scribe is obviously a big deal, but outside of that, it's not like he's been able to push anything on board, and No Hands is very healthy at 27 right now.
It's just looking very, very strong. s8ris still has a lot of the power cards left at the bottom of his deck, which I imagine he's going to try and find with Secret Passage, like the questings primarily. Because again, you got to remember, No Hands is winning because he's winning on board. As soon as that starts to fall behind, he doesn't have those comeback mechanisms that Priest traditionally does have more access to.
Yeah, I think the thing to keep an eye on here is as soon as Plague is forced out, No Hands probably either already won the game at that point or is in trouble. Well, this isn't the hardest choice I've ever seen. 2 cards
One of them
that
does
do nothing.
anything.
Is that Shadow? It was, right?
Yeah.
Can you just Shadow this Mage Scribe? Is that insane?
That's pretty good. I mean, the other card I'm looking at is Plague of Madness, which is very, very powerful in this matchup if you time it correctly.
Okay, so now there's Devout Pupil, Psyche Split to make some big minions with Divine Shield, which are going to be pretty powerful. But for me now, it's all about No Hands' timing, right? He obviously doesn't want to just chuck everything on the board and have it wiped out to a random mage spell. That could happen, of course.
Yeah, he's obviously still thinking Puzzle Box, Flame Strike, all those big ones.
Right.
That can be used to clear the board.
Oh, he's going to throw it out, though. Wants to take maximum control, and we can see, of course, there aren't any of those big AoE clears in s8ris' hand. I don't know how much of a read No Hands should have of that.
I mean, I think even if we're ignoring the reads he can have, he's played Polkelt, so he's guaranteed another Devout Pupil next turn. So he just has Devout Pupil plus Psych Split next turn, which is very, very potent refill if there is some kind of a big board clear.
Nothing too crazy.
Wrathspike Brute isn't bad, to be fair. If he can't get through it with a spell, he's going to have to proc it at least once.
Yeah, it's just that he can heal the Polk out, right? And then it's just not a big deal. It's just not one of the big blowout summons, right? Most importantly, there is that Conjurer's Calling. Ooh.
Okay. Fairly average. Man, you just play Elemental Allies because, or could it serve some purpose in a strange world?
I'm not gonna lie. I looked to see if he had a Shadow Step for the Sticky Fingers, so he could play the Plague and then Sticky Finger the dagger away from the priest.
That'd be pretty sick, actually. I would like to see that.
Pretty nice there that, of course, the attack goes through and then the 1 damage goes off. So, getting max value from the Evil Conscript.
Yeah, nicely done indeed. No Hands needs to be going as aggressively as possible to keep board here. He shouldn't be playing too aggressively for face damage because he has no burst whatsoever in his deck. This is purely about locking down an insurmountable board, which honestly is starting to look like it may be kind of difficult. Devout Pupil again plus the Psyche Split next turn, or even Devout Pupil this turn, is powerful. But is it quite powerful enough? Rogue still has plenty of cards to be working with here.
Well, this is the problem, right? I mean, I have no doubt that No Hands will have a decent plan. He'll know, what to do. He's putting something together, or trying to at least. But I'm looking at the list and knowing the Polkel order, of course. I'm not really sure what he's supposed to do. I don't see the combos. They're not, I'm not seeing the matrix, so to speak, where I can see the combos that are going to win him this game. Maybe that's because he's just had to put some out too early or had to use the cards a little bit more liberally. But for me, I just don't see a plan outside of Psyche split something and hope s8ris doesn't kill it, and then win.
Yes, you have just correctly laid out the game plan. Well done, Raven. I agree.
But it feels too simple for it to be correct, though.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
my worry, right?
No, I know what you mean. I think the thing is, though, that with guaranteed Spellkin, I believe, as the next draw, as the one remaining 5-mana card in the deck, that's pretty powerful to go along Psych Split, to be fair, just to make sure that the pressure keeps rolling forward.
Not bad as well. The Holy Smite plus Goblin Lackey can actually just punch through these taunts.
True, yeah. Maybe you don't go for the Spellkin this turn, to be fair.
Hey, you could use the Lackey on that Spellkin to do it, right? And just push the damage for now.
Yeah, you could use the Lackey on the minion you copied with Psych Split, right?
Oh,
Or
sure, yeah,
this way around.
it does just better.
Yeah. Slightly better. Good job, No Hands.
Like I said, I'm sure No Hands will have a better plan than me.
Nicely done. Yeah, again, not playing too aggressively. There's still attack phase secrets that he's unaware of right now, which I think screams Vaporize pretty heavily. So I like just making sure he's locking down the board. Again, this is the game plan.
And again, like, look how weird this hand is from s8ris. He has one minion, which is a quest in, but then he has Conjurer's Shadow Step. You know, like these cards that do not play nicely with questing at all. And then if he plagues to get through this one of these, or both these 6/7s, I guess, over 2 turns, then he can't really play his questing. So nothing really adds up. Does he just have to Secret Passage?
It's definitely what I'm looking at on this turn. Like, he can start off with a Frostbolt, I suppose, which is pretty powerful, just as the freeze effect, which I do like the look of. But it's really just that Shadow Step that's so brutally awkward on this turn.
You go for the Secret Passage to get anything that works a little bit nicely.
Oh, no.
The Shadow.
Oh no! Disaster! I'm
should we
sorry,
do on its
s8ris.
mage scar?
It's just funny. I know it's
funny,
brutal,
yeah.
and it might be sending you down to 3-1. That is funny.
Look, sorry, if you were casting and I was you right now, I wouldn't mind just people laughing because it is funny. It doesn't matter who it's about.
Flawless logic as ever, Raven. You know what? If you were threatening me, I'd want you to punch me in the face, so I'm going to punch you in the face.
That's not what I
just
said.
saying.
I'm just throwing out there that some things are just funny. Anyway, Cobalt
Not
Spellkin number 2 is drawn, and most importantly here, NoHandsGamer is by no means close to even considering having to play the Plague, which to me means he is winning. I think that's the pivot point as far as I can see in his hand. This Spellkin will give s8ris some stuff to do, though.
Yeah, not really, though. I think it was nicely done by No Hands to, like, make it not so good of a target. Like, I mean, you're right. He can go for Conjurer's Calling on the Spellkin on this turn, I suppose.
Yeah, okay, I'll reassess. Gives him more to do than nothing, which would have been his turn otherwise. So it's something. I would have loved to see No Hands throw out the Generous Mummy into the Plagiarize, and he's like, enjoy. You play all your bad cards.
I wonder.
Is the line he can go for of, like, Shadow Stepping it on this turn in order to get, like, a cheaper Conjurer's target?
He needs to
turn?
Shadow Step something. The amount of times I've complained about players when they like lose a game with Shadow Step in hand, and they've had it in hand,
true.
you know, for like half a game. It's like it's so powerful. Just do something. He does now have Scheme, which does interest me, Derek.
In what capacity?
That like he could, depending on how long he can hold off, the Scheme could be sick, right?
On what? Just
anything
to, like, stuff
at this point.
anything.
No Hands has 7 cards left. I'm kind of being serious, right? And he, like you said, there's no way for No Hands to like generate tons of big minions in this deck. There's no Galakrond. It really is just a pretty straightforward list at this point, especially with the Polkelt played. I think just landing that on almost anything, if he can get it on a 5-drop, then he even has that Conjurer's Corn as well. Like, I think if he can just keep playing stuff, he might have a chance. And there's a nice Mage Scribe, and if he can scheme that, 2 extras in the deck. I don't know.
Okay,
Derek.
you know what? Fair play. I'm willing to believe again. I was kind of giving up on him there for a second.
Honestly, Derek, it felt like you were giving up on me, and that hurt. Never give up on my silly suggestions. Hey, don't you start.
Well, I think first of all we're just seeing what we get, and then you can start messing about with Conjurer's Call if you have to.
Well, do you target first?
Whoa!
Oh,
that's pretty good.
No Hands with the preemptive betrayal positioning. What a god! Look at that! Look at that Rush Lackey.
That's pretty sick.
And the Conjurers. Whoa! Whoa! Ah! Noises!
Is that Raven's best card in the world, Scorpion Boy?
Yes. I thought it was going to be good,
called.
Okay? Like I thought about every Hunter card that's trash. Look, I had hope.
It's pretty good here, at least.
It is. So he does have the second. He does have more shadows in the deck, right, for that scheme. So he can still scheme the Mage Scribes, and then he has like the Elemental Allies, the Sinister Strike to proc it. So he does have a way to keep generating stuff. And like I said, honestly, I think s8ris just needs stuff because No Hands isn't generating big minions. He's not generating threats to actually end the game. And if s8ris can then beat him in the fatigue plan, then I think he might have turned this one round.
Oh, it's going to be close. I mean, it's exactly what you said. It's the lack of reactivity that's really biting NoHandsGamer here. But he can still go for some powerful proactive plays with this Sethic in the next few turns. I think he's saving on for... oh no, I was going to say the Gift of Luminance, but it's already been played this game.
It's been played.
So, interesting. I wonder what he's holding out for. I guess just killing off the Stinger next turn and hoping that it can stick.
And we're going to get a very nice insight into how s8ris feels right now about this game as to where this 6 damage goes, Derek. So he could take the yes, I will win in fatigue plan with this scheme and trade, right? And then just save the weapon for as long as possible because it kills anything.
Oh, yeah.
And just trade away, play really slow. Looks like he's going to use the weapon here, though, and push that 6 damage to phase, which, funnily enough, also helps in the fatigue plan, because your opponent dies quicker.
Yeah, I think this is a really nice middle ground. He does need to be clearing off minions, obviously, given that this is buff priest. And anything stuck on board is pretty scary. But this 1-1, I think, is reasonable enough to just leave about in play.
Sovereign that Plague. And this might be the turn. Gets rid of a Kartut, which is a big deal. Again, the problem we have here is we need to channel NoHandsGamer's perspective, right? Outside of a scheme, if he plagues away this Kartut, then he reduces all that healing for s8ris. He's kind of equal on fatigue, but has hero power and apotheosis that heals. So you would argue, well, that kind of beats the dagger. So NoHands, I think, is setting up for that fatigue plan. He doesn't go for the plague this turn, but he just takes 9.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously this turn there was the plagiarize that he needed to worry about. Well, actually, sorry, I guess that was last turn that was down. So he didn't even want to proc it last turn at all, but this turn it's finally proc. So next turn, I guess, is technically the first point at which he could go in with his big Sethic buff train.
I'm just worried about the taking 9 bit.
I wonder.
Yeah.
That is a lot.
That's scary.
And if No Hands played Plague that turn and he gives s8ris a Plague, is that not fine if you're expecting to win the late game with heal anyway?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess he's just trying to bait a little bit more. I'm not really sure if he's going to get the time to do that, though. Yeah.
9 damage a turn seems sick. I'd never play a minion ever again if I had 9 damage on board.
The thing I'm looking at here, actually, for s8ris is Torgwaggle's scheme on the Stinger, because it's actually pretty premium at this point, right? To be able to rip minions from your opponent's hand and then just kill them so they can't buff anything up.
Or even the card tuck, right? Like,
sure, yeah.
You're not losing the fatigue plan in that. Not only have you gained more cards from Scheme, but you also heal to an infinite amount. But just as much as we're talking about NoHands trying to, draw out this fatigue plan, s8ris will be doing the same, and the longer he doesn't play that Tog for, well, the more cards he gets in his deck, right?
Indeed. And finally, it's deemed as big enough here for NoHands to go in. It's kind of a punish for s8ris not killing off the 1-1 this turn. Like, a couple turns ago when it was 6 damage he was missing, I understood it. This turn it was only 3. And now it is a pretty big minion that's left in play, to be fair.
2 initiation and a mass resurrect. Those are cards that can change things, Derek.
Those are cards. I'll leave it at that.
Magic is not a toy.
There's Onyx Mage Scribe again.
Oh, he still has so much value. Oh, this is insane. I think s8ris has just got this, right? Like, even with these initiations, right, s8ris can go for some... He just has so much stuff to do, and he has reactive plays as well as proactive, which is so important.
Give me a quest. Do not lose these.
Oh, just assassination for the 6.
Not bad.
Okay. Okay,
now it does have to die.
I'm getting a little bit nervous about this scheme. I think
there's going to be nothing left to target.
Well, at this point, does one more make a difference? And if you're expecting this board to live, to scheme next turn, are you not just expecting to win with that board anyway, so you may as well scheme?
Yeah, I mean, there is a downside to scheming, to be fair, because it makes it less likely every turn that he draws the Shadow, which has Onyx Mage Scribe, which is the power spike available to him. So I can understand holding back here from his perspective, but you are right. He is going to lose a lot of good targets here.
He could just have 100 6/9s in his deck. So the Plague does come out finally, and now the trick here for NoHands is going to be keeping on top of the board. Like, that was where he's pushed to the limit and had to Plague. The board was way too big, way too wide. But now, can he deal with the Mage Scribe? Can he deal with the follow-up? Can he deal with about 7 more Mage Scribes?
Oh, I don't even know what you go for. Like, do you send Miscreant into your deck instead? I know it doesn't spend quite as much mana each turn, but 1 generation Lackey, be it Dragon or Spell, is a way to spend your mana for the next few turns, and it's a lot more reactive. These Mage Scribes can be susceptible to being a bit clunky.
I agree, but if I told you you could play a 4/9 every single turn for the rest of this game, would you?
Do not lose.
Yes. Yes,
well,
I would.
That's the... Oh, it's just potion. 1 mana Mage Scribe. 1 mana Hanar.
I think actually with the dirty tricks in play, I'm even more in on the idea of going Miscreant. Like, I don't know if I'm going crazy, but I just think he has too much stuff to spend his mana on. Like, the 6 drops, you can't play 2 of them in a turn, which makes them so awkward.
Oh, he went for Hanar.
Sure.
Derek, I've already been through this once in European Grandmasters. I don't think I have the capacity to do it twice in the same year. I've been through enough. Somebody tag in.
Oh my lord. Alright, here we go. Here we go. NoHands surely has to be out of it now. Surely there's nothing he can do to pull back.
No one will ever convince me that scheming a 1/4 is better than a 4-9. No one, doesn't matter. Anyone could try, and it would not work. 1-4s do not kill your opponent anywhere near as fast as 4-9s.
My hand is too full.
Yeah, but I mean,
what do secrets do? I don't know what secrets do, Tara.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like that Hanar because I think his hand is just going to be full of nonsense and it's not actually going to kill his opponent. But like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's cool. It's I don't agree with it necessarily, but I guess here we are.
I'm losing it, Derek. I'm losing it.
You love to see it.
You've missed.
Well, also, he just overdraws a card instead of playing a 1/1. Like, why not?
I just don't understand anymore. Look, this game was a wild one, which is often the case with Secret Rogue versus Priest. We've seen similar ways, you know, where the game goes super late, crazy things happen.
Yeah.
But all I've seen now are the duplicates have been burnt, and he has 1/4s.
Yeah,
I would have liked the Miscreants way more, even if not the... I know I'm talking a lot about Mage Scribe, but Miscreants, again, if you have, like, infinite lackeys, well, sure, they do great stuff as well. Right. And you can just get Draconic Lackey, right? Which is insane.
That was exactly my point. Like, lackeys give you both a way to spend your mana, and they actually can have the high roll potential, not even that much of a high roll, of just winning, exactly. If you get a huge dragon or a perfect spell to get Cold Blood or something.
Okay, the only way... I've worked out how someone could convince me. s8ris is actually a god, and he's playing around initiation by picking the worst minion to have the most of. And saying, well, get a copy of this if you want it. It's only a Hanar.
That is brutal.
That's all I've got.
Oh. I love it, like, you try and sneak that in, and it's like, oh, I know. It's even more stupid than we thought this play.
It's important here for NoHands, though, that he has to make something stick. He has Embalming. He has a way to generate minions. Evil Conscriptor is important because just as much we were talking about lackeys potentially being good for s8ris, they're just as good for Priest, right? You know, he can get more spells. He can get big dragon outcomes. It would be a big deal. So I do wonder if there's any merit of actually trying to get some use out of this Conscriptor, maybe with the Embalming on that. Not try and let like the big minion live, but try and get the higher value minion live. It's a tough call, though.
Tough call indeed. I think now, though, for NoHands, with his last spell, I think being Raised Dead, because it's 0 mana off of the Polkel, it's just not going to be enough to get there. If he can get Sethek specifically, or like double Devout Pupil, perhaps, in order to try and go aggressively as possible for tempo. But even then, I think s8ris just has this locked up either way.
Secret Chain going to come out once again.
Oh my lord. And it's just going to be up to 10 cards again.
Changed.
Yeah, or could he turn... Oh no, he can't turn his Hanars into Mage Scribes. That would be funny. It's 1 mana off being able to go that way.
Oh, you just need to stack bamboozles in a certain way to get them to work. I don't know. He could use Witchy Lackeys to evolve. Oh wait, no he can't. He's not going to miss it. Well, never mind. This is a lot of poison though. Dragon's Horde looks like it's just a high value outcome here. Can clear up this. Once again, s8ris is in control of this board, and NoHands is like he is draconic.
Oh, it's imprisoned monkeys anyway.
Alex Straza?
Deathwing, Dragon Queen, Alex Straza. Yeah, like, we're approaching that kind of territory. There's Dragon Queen! Okay, we got a plan.
He is only taking 1, 2, 3, 4. Not a lot of damage.
Not that much.
He can afford to just slam this Alex, right?
Oh!
Could get a Mage Scribe, though.
Okay, gets the spells as well. That's pretty cute. I like it.
That's the Elemental has to proc. not really what he was after. The Powered Feast definitely isn't bad, but it's by no means good.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I think I'd rather just like have the heal. I'd rather heal for 2, I think, than play a Homunculus. I don't really see what that does.
Well, he knows he's facing down 100 1/4s, right? So the taunt will actually kill most of them. Let's be honest.
Brutal.
It's also true.
It's also kind of true, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's so brutal.
So many options.
So, hero power, Hanar, deadly poison, I guess?
Yeah, I think. Well, I think it could start Dragon Sword, right?
Oh, he's at 9 cards right now. Okay, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Whatever.
Yeah,
He's the
he
Mage
needs to do
Scribe,
something
yeah.
different. Yeah.
Do not lose this.
Needs to get something
So
out of the way. I
this is
forgot the
fine.
Mage Scribe still had Spell Burst. Oh,
Ooh.
another assassination for the 4/9. Who's going to
I'm
use the
looking
1/1? Okay.
Sinister Strikes looks pretty nutty here. 6, 7, 8, 11, 14, 15 damage, I think, was available there.
Do you think you should consider getting this Deadly Poison live? He gets 2 swings out of it anyway, right? So.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the time to go. Clearing off the board. Check, check, check.
So No Hands is going to get Deathwing from Alexstrasza, play it, and then he's just going to get assassinated and lose.
I mean, he can't discard the rest of his hand. It has to be like Deathwing Dragon Lord, but or Aspect of Madness, whatever it is. Not Dragon Lord. Yeah, I'm not seeing it come together.
Life and hope are worth fighting.
Oh, I thought it was Nazari for a second. Oh, imagine Nazari skeletal dragon. You'd be like, whoa.
A prolonged and valiant effort for No Hands. But it's just not enough. In the end, his priest is designed specifically to lock down those mid-game turns, not to try and last and go for the value game plan.
Right.
And it does, of course, end up just being too much. I think s8ris knows that was a bit of a messy game, to be perfectly honest, in terms of the different lines that could have been explored. But it was good enough to get over the finish line.
It was, yeah. And for me, again, it was my first viewing of No Hands part in the priest. I think his decision-making was good, as is often the case with No Hands, of course, but we didn't see what the deck was supposed to do, right? Nothing just stood out to me as, oh, wow, look at that. Okay, I'm on board now. So that obviously, 1 game sample size on stream that I saw, of course, but I do think there's more to come here, and maybe, of course, we're going to see No Hands play priest once again, versus whether that be Rogue or Demon Hunter. We might see something a little bit more, and something more expected out of this list than what we saw in that previous matchup.
Indeed. And taking a look at the mage specifically, he has gone for the one firebrand. I don't know if that's been popping up much in Europe, but we have seen that crop up here and there in Asia Pacific Grandmasters from the likes of Tom and Blitzchung. 2 honestly pretty good effects. It was cut fairly on from the lists, but it's not something that I dislike at all being run in Tempo Mage.
Yeah, it has been splashing around now and again in the European Grandmasters for a few of the players. They do like it, and it's one of those cards that I don't play in the list I play the most, but I would never be like, oh, why are you playing that card, right? Like, you always say, okay, it's going to get some good value overall, but we are going to dive straight into this game here. Game number 4 between No Hands and s8ris. Both players currently at 3-0 in the Swiss. So this is round number 4, of course. And the winner is going to get off to a great start and potentially on the road to a complete clean sweep day number 1.
Yeah, 4-0, you're still definitely not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination, but your tiebreakers start to look pretty good. You can still take a loss in the early rounds and potentially get in there on 7-2 if the tiebreakers work out well for you. So it's looking good for both these players, especially No Hands if he can get off to an early win, which it's looking like with this hand, he may be able to get there. Just going for coin into Sethic, I think a lot of the time is pretty valuable.
Yeah, having that embalming ritual is absolutely huge. I was going to say that might change now, but of course with no dragon in hand, the Cleric of Scales is not going to be the way to go. But now I think it might be the other way around, where it's actually like just set a coin embalming instead. Or maybe No Hands goes even slower. Who knows?
Yeah, I think with the drop of the lab partner is worth holding off just for at least a turn here, if not more. And, I mean, honestly, it probably will be more. Going for Coin Lawkeeper next turn is interesting because it will guarantee him the second Devout Pupil now that Soul Mirror has been drawn, which isn't actually that good for the next few turns. He'd kind of rather draw something else.
Yeah, it's a very strange deck, right? Because although a lot of the times you would think like, okay, Lawkeeper then just puts the big minions at the top and like Psyche Split, which you might not be able to get off versus Mage, it does very quickly go into double Cobalt Spellkin, which is very powerful, of course. I do think he can delay the Polk out a little bit. There's no massive rush. I actually think the biggest outcome of Coin Polk out is actually just having a 4/5 on board right now as opposed to its actual effect.
Yeah, again, going with the coin here allows him to get the Devout Pupils down in the next couple of turns. Probably worth it. But I think showing, honestly, a priest deck that feels closer to what we've seen from Paladin traditionally, where it has these powerful buff effects. If it gets ahead on board, it stays ahead on board a lot of the time. But in these kind of close board battles, it's just not quite enough to cut it, because it just puts a minion on board, and it has to be in the lead to get anything done, which Mage preys upon pretty cleanly, as we can see here.
Good choice here as well. They go for the Primordial Studies. With nothing to really benefit from it, of course. Yes, there's the Ray of Frost, but now the Azure Explorer, like, so sick as a pickup. Not only is just a high spell damage minion in itself, also a dragon, which we can see, of course, s8ris is playing the dragon version of the Tempo Mage with the double Arcane Breath, but then also the Discover option. It's such a high-value card.
Yeah, it's a pretty surprising thing actually to see in its own right to go for the spell conversion right now, because one of the main reasons that I liked the spell conversion at all was because you got so many evocations for 1 mana off of the Wand Maker and the Spellkin. Obviously not available anymore, given that it's up to 2. So, I mean, I'm glad he's getting some kind of value out of it, at least for the moment, even if it's not the list that I would choose.
Tough call here. Draconic Studies is going to be the option for No Hands. I imagine we're going to see it this turn, unless he doesn't want the reduction on the Spellkin next turn. I don't see why not, though, because it would allow him to play one of the spells next turn as well.
Yeah, I wonder what he was specifically looking for there that was better than just starting with Draconic Studies. I guess Ray of Frost, maybe, was worth it to deny a little bit of damage.
A simple spell.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it achieves too much, but s8ris is going to be taking the initiative here, and his own Spellkin down, and now unlimited Ray of Frost in hand, it may as well feel like. Along with that Mana Giant means that he's put himself in a position to make quite the aggressive push, but No Hands, if he can hold off enough to get to turn 7, does have Soul Mirror to kind of put that to an end.
He's got Soul Mirror, which is something, but at the same time, you're just conceding the initiative back to your opponent. They're going to develop a lot of stuff on the board. Because there's no Wild Pyromancer in the deck, that's the real kicker here. It's just so difficult to pull these board states back because he's been behind from turn 1.
It's tough, right? We see the Imprisoned Homunculus in the list, but I wonder how reliant in a matchup like this the deck is on having it on curve, right, and getting that sort of chunky minion down early-ish, and being able to like build on that minion, because that's the problem. I feel this deck, even more than all the other priests right now, relies on having to like build up a board and not have it just negated every single turn. It's going to be able to smite away this ogre though, which does help. It does make some of the follow-up plays a little bit better with not having that 4/4 just sat there ready to trade.
That was kind of a cute thing as well. That's the first time I've ever seen a minion discounted by both Primordial Studies and Draconic Studies on the Azure Explorer. I thought it had, like, copied the 3 costs from his opponent's hand, which isn't supposed to happen, but it was down to 2 for a moment there before the Mana Reservoir was played, which I haven't seen before. Take that off the bingo card.
I do like s8ris getting a giant down this turn. It is that one turn before Soul Mirror. It's just an 8/8, and your opponent has to have more or less exactly Shadow of Death to actually kill it, so Looks like a pretty good plan. It looks like s8ris might well be setting up for this.
Yeah, I really like the plan of going for the Giant, even clearing off all the minions on board as well. Very nice job. He doesn't have Conjurer's Calling in the deck, so he doesn't have to save the Giant for that. It's just going for the most aggressive approach possible. And, I mean, I think you just trade here as well. Even if you're supposed to VT there, he gets to push an extra 2 damage at the cost of a 1-1 here.
NoHands does have the Devout Pupil to create a bit of a stopgap. If he wants to play something as a follow-up as well. Does have Evasive Draconid as well, so either or, just to get him to that Soul Mirror without taking a ton of damage. Is there anything else he's really looking at, though? Everything else feels a little bit rough, considering he's only on 17 health.
Yeah, Initiation's not pulling its weight quite yet. I think it's just got to be the most powerful thing you can do each turn, which right now really just looks like Evasive Draconid to me.
I do love a good
Okay.
study session.
I guess the benefit of this setup is that if the Giant trades into the 4-5, which is somewhat expected, you do have the possibility of Initiation on the following turn to steal the Giant, which is
It's true.
pretty powerful, to be fair. It's really just about how much s8ris can fill up the rest of the board to deny that as a possibility, lest you die.
Yeah, and also the fact that there's so many Ray of Frost, I think there is a lot of value in s8ris just using them now. Just get through the minions, get this Giant to hit face. You're basically making Ray of Frost deal damage to face with that use, so I do like it a lot.
Yeah, me too. It's really just about where you want the rest of the trades to go, because clearly Soul Mirror is your highest concern right now, and trading into the 2-2, it's likely to just trade back into the 3-5 anyway, so I think getting the 3 extra face damage here is actually perfectly justified.
Yeah. I mean, he has Spellwing, he has Malagos, has Cobalt Spellkin as well. He has a lot of stuff to just set up lethal and get the burn damage to finish the game next turn.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, of course, the taunts will still be in the way. They won't be cleared off, so the 2-2 just has to trade in there. And pray that nothing can come face on the other side of the turn, because this is really scary.
Yeah. Goose into Frostbolt, gets the job done.
Ooh.
It's just intellect, right?
I guess, yeah.
You could go the other way and consider Flame Strike and just say, no matter what, next turn this board gets deleted. You know, if need be. If not, then there's still Ray of Frost, there's still Spellkin, there's still one Maker and everything, right? So s8ris could take the approach that the Flame Strike is the one thing he doesn't have access to.
Yeah, I think whatever he does on this turn, he just needs to make sure that he's clearing off the board. And then, honestly, picking Flame Strike as an almost guaranteed clear on whatever they do next turn as well seems reasonable, for sure. Wow, okay, he's just going for it right now.
Okay, got some pretty good cards. Those might lead into lethal as well. NoHands only has Radiance to heal.
I don't think I actually like that line from s8ris. He could have gone for triple Ray of Frost, right, on all the 3 minions on the other side of the board. Because I believe one of them is like a half version, one of them is the full twin spell Ray of Frost. And then what does NoHands really do at that point? He can't heal with Apotheosis. He'd have to just stick a taunt in the way and hope that's enough. And then you go for the AI next turn, and you'll still have 5 mana available plus plenty of cards.
Yeah, when I suggested the AI, I actually, assumed it was for later, just to refill the hand and then do something a little bit more active this turn. And this is one of the reasons, I mean, not this card exactly, but if you're leaving the board up, that's why I was also talking about Flame Strike as well, because it does just delete your opponent's board in almost every circumstance, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is kind of closest to whether you want to go for that. Like, if you haven't stuck much of a board, that's almost your entire turn having been used up, whereas there are often ways with Sorcerer's Apprentice that you can effectively clear the board by a much cheaper method. But a lot of options. It was an interesting turn, for sure.
This evasive is actually bit of a problem right now. Suddenly these Ray of Frost don't look too cool, do they?
Not really.
It was a lab partner with the help of Raz this turn. To, if not,
I guess that's
clear the
pretty
board,
good.
kill the 3-2 and like chip away at the Draconic.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, because it's untargetable, you kind of don't have to be as afraid of the Draconid on the other side, just because they can't buff it, so you're going to be at most taking 7 damage, which is reasonable for the time being. You can definitely survive against that.
Time runs out on me.
Ah, interesting. Again, I maybe I'm seeing this wrong, but I even like the Flame Strike then, because I feel like s8ris has tons of stuff to do that is normal mage game plan. Your opponent's deck apparently like makes minions and duplicates them and stuff. So why not just have a Flame Strike in your back pocket ready, right? Like that's the way I would view it, and I understand like you know, you can be wrong with that mindset, but it just looks like it's the one thing he doesn't have access to, but he did go for that Learn Draconic instead.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of options next turn, though. Being able to go for kind of setting up a pseudo Flame Strike with Raz plus the Explorer as well is not terrible. You might be able to maneuver it so that's good enough for the time being, at least.
Indeed. This is a really tough turn. Like, does this have to be like Hothead Psyche Split? Nice. A couple of really big minions.
Yeah, it puts a lot of taunt in the way, which is quite obviously extremely valuable right now. And s8ris has shown somewhat of an inability to answer these wide boards, I guess. The main reason, I suppose, being that the untargetable minion was the one in play.
I was looking at as well whether Raised Dead was to be played that turn for No Hands, just to give the extra taunt. Did hold off on it instead. Nova, Evocation.
Oh, that was close. Nova was super powerful there.
Like, Nova sets up multi-turn board clears, right? Because you can just put some damage in, freeze, then carry on the turn after. It did look alright, especially with Raz, right? Like Nova Raz.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the argument is that Evocation can do that plus so much more if it works out for you. It's just a bit more of a gamble as to whether or not it will work. He's drawing a lot here. He's filling up his hand very, very heavily for a play that involves picking Evocation.
Yeah. Again, Nova would have fit in this turn. Not that I want to harp on too much.
Yeah, I mean, well, no, I think it's kind of good. It's good to harp on because I was.
Wait,
what?
What? Okay, this is, we're in mess town right now again, Derek.
Yeah. Like, I was on board at the start because Evocation can be super powerful, but if he's drawing this many cards instead of just picking Frost Nova and freezing the board very cleanly, this was not the way to play the turn.
I don't know if it's pressure or stress or any of those things, but s8ris definitely isn't playing up to scratch right now, is he? I feel like these are multiple opportunities that have gone pretty haywire, honestly.
Yeah, you hate to see it. But I think I was going to say as long as he can get all these cards down in time, it'll be good. But burning the Apprentice is so brutal on the other side, especially when NoHandsGamer is stealing your Apprentice and popping off with his own Sethic in the meanwhile.
Oh, and it ends.
Or he was.
Yeah, or it's over. Still, though, this is the problem, right? Look at s8ris's hand and tell me what plan is formed from this hand. Because there's about 8 different plans here, as far as I can see. I'm not sure how he pulls off any one very well.
Well, my thinking for the last few turns has been this, of just Raz and try and get something to happen, but he played the Azure Explorer last turn, so he doesn't even have that much capability to actually go wide with Raz anymore.
That's what I mean. I feel like, I don't know how we got here, but there's like 6 different game plans in his hand.
Yeah.
But because there's so many, none of them are good right now, even though they could have been, right?
It's like the germs trying to get into Mr. Burns' body. He's only not sick because every disease in the world is trying to get into him.
Firebrand again, just chipping away, but look how big this board is. There's just not enough damage. The Raz does help, of course, with double lab partner, going to push a good chunk, kill off that apprentice, but he still just will end the turn with a 7 attack minion.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, this was a fairly powerful turn. I think there was, you know, as we were saying, undeniably a slightly better option to go for with the Raz. But he's able to deal 3 damage. There's only 1 minion on the other side. He's pushing for lethal in the next few turns. s8ris is still in the lead, in my opinion, at this point, even if there was a significantly better way to approach this.
Oh, I definitely think he's in the lead, because NoHands doesn't have... Oh... Yeah, definitely think he's in the lead. Just don't play those Rays dead, NoHands. You might be quite dead. But yeah, he's still in the lead. He's still almost certainly going to win this game.
Yeah.
But it's looked quite shaky, and if you look shaky across a whole series, you are unlikely to win that series, however close it looks.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might have misspoke. The justification for his play, I'm not saying it was okay because he's winning. I'm saying it was okay because he had a reasonable follow-up. Like, the play he made on this turn was pretty powerful. I mean, okay is a bit strong. It was definitely a bit of a messy turn, but he got the important
Was that play
through.
the most powerful play you've ever seen, Derek? Answer that question.
Yeah, if any play is not the best thing I've ever seen, it's the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yes,
It's a binary system.
There you go. Yes.
Well, still 1 damage off here. Kind of surprised he went with all that mana used on Spellkin this turn instead of just trying to hit lethal.
Well, wouldn't you just Conjurers?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Conjurers or Evocation to try and hit lethal.
I think I would have conjured that just to see. I guess it... Like, are there that many outcomes where it goes that bad?
Okay, freezing up the board. This is fine. It completely neuters any reactive potential that NoHandsGamer would be moving towards. And it also means with the s8ris Explorer still alive, he will just die if he plays Raised Dead as well, which is hilarious.
It is funny. Luminance won't cut it. Mind Vision. That's not gonna help.
Frost Nova, I mean, yeah,
Nope.
Still not playable.
Ray of Frost don't cut it. Doesn't look like it's going to be enough. It would have had to been pretty miraculous, honestly, and it's just going to go out as a true gentleman there with a Raised Dead for 6 damage to his own face, and that is going to be evening up this series from s8ris. We're going to go to the last game, and it's looked hard fought for s8ris there, and pretty dicey at moments. And NoHands, again, might just be failing to his own brew of this priest here. It's not looked that impressive. Obviously, he has won games with it, I imagine, because he is doing so well in the Swiss so far anyway. But at least this series for me, Derek, the priest hasn't really stuck out as something that's looked powerful.
Yeah, I think that things haven't been looking great for both of the players here, but for different reasons. Like you said, s8ris had a rough couple of games. Both the wins he's taken against the Priest have not looking especially clean, in our opinion. But at the same time, I think this build of the Priest is... we're kind of looking at it through the lens of going up against tempo decks like Mage and Rogue, whereas I think what NoHands is trying to do is not just take a slightly different build of Priest and hope it does the same things. He's changing the matchups entirely. By putting Paladin in there, I have to imagine he's going for a build that's very strong against Warrior, primarily, which I think this Priest would be tremendously powerful in order to keep constantly pushing forward these threats, given that the Warrior doesn't develop onto the board that much. And also, to an extent, Demon Hunter. I think it could have a decent matchup here if s8ris is not able to develop heavily onto the board in the starting turns.
Well, it's all going to come down to this, though, this Demon Hunter versus Priest matchup. And again, it is important to know a lot of the way we've seen this matchup in general develop is a Pyromancer refill your health plan. Well, that isn't going to be that isn't going to work because No Hands doesn't play Pyromancer. So he isn't going to have access to that. He obviously plays more minions, and Devout Pupils are obviously going to be good against Demon Hunter. But honestly, the lack of Pyro, at least from the way I've been seeing the matchup go over the past few weeks, it does scare me a little bit, for at least for No Hand's sake.
And now here for s8ris, this is a hand that, honestly, I don't mind the look of full keeping. Because Consume Magic obviously can be ludicrously powerful in the matchup in order to silence away one of those big threats and draw a card given that it's in the outcast position. Spirit Jailer speaks for itself, and then Skull just instantly moves to the outcast position. I actually really like this full keep.
Yeah, this is looking pretty good, but this is what I was talking about earlier, I think in the last game. How much of this deck, or how much power is gained when you can just imprison Homunculus on one? Something we haven't seen in this series until now. And,
True.
Never mind the second one just sat in hand, but just the fact that, boom, there's the board he's going to start building from in a couple of turns' time. And, I'm actually excited to see how this goes, because both players, as far as I can see, Derek, have pretty powerful openings here.
No, it's a really good point you bring up, actually, about the Homunculus, because if we think back to the old school version of this buff priest that No Hands was playing before Scholomance, I think, he had Imprisoned Vile Fiends in the list, which I thought were a fantastic inclusion, honestly, because they're fairly powerful just as a neutral card, and they had the same benefit as the Imprisoned Homunculus in a minion that is guaranteed to be on board at the start of your turn that you can then buff. But it also had Rush, which was even more powerful, so I'm honestly pretty surprised to have seen him cut them at all.
Yeah, excuse me, sorry. It's tough, right? Because although they are powerful, they do come down later, which then with Dormant slows them down even more. And although they have Rush, they don't have Taunt, which maybe is what No Hands was missing or felt he was missing from the list. So I'm really excited for this. There's now Power Word Feast, which can make this even bigger. There's, of course, the fear of Consume Magic, but your opponent plays one when No Hand's deck is actually full of cards that are buffs, duplicates, special effects. So yeah. I think even the fact that this is almost certainly going to be consumed here, it's actually fine. It's so early in the game. It's not like it's a lethal play through a taunt. He still has a 2/5 to just put another buff on next turn if he wants. So I think we're now seeing the power of this deck finally come into play.
I mean, you know what sounds pretty good to me? Coin Psych Split on a 2/5. That's fine, right? That's 3 7s that are in play. You can then start buffing up more with Power Word Feast on the following turn. Like, this is what the deck has been missing.
And the other one comes out from Dormant as well, right? So it's huge.
Yeah.
It's going to pop out next turn. So we have a 2/5 taunt, and he can Psyche Split.
Oh, yeah, sorry. That's what I meant. I was thinking, like, if you Psyche Split the minion for a second, does it go Dormant? But, yeah.
Hey, though, look at that. Like, s8ris even putting damage into that Homunculus. It can just be healed, but that's the kind of respect he's offering the minion. He just doesn't want the health to be so high he can't deal with it. Maybe trying to set up for a Blade Dance, but that is a long way off.
Interesting choice there for NoHandsGamer. I guess you do want to... Yeah, okay, given that it's Powered Feast, you heal back up, going for it on this minion makes a lot of sense. You just have the highest health board possible. That just makes it really awkward for s8ris to answer.
And also, in a weird way, it spreads the threat. The taunt minion isn't the massive minion, so you've got to hit through the taunt, and there's a 4/7 on the board, as opposed to the taunt being the 4/7.
I know there's a way.
It's a tough spot, isn't it, for s8ris? Because the Lapidary ideally wants to be coupled with the Blade Dance on turn 7, after you've maybe found a Twin Slice or a Chaos Strike to go alongside it. But it also really wants to come down on this turn specifically.
It's also a 5/5.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is pretty good. And most importantly, his next turn's going to get eaten up by that skull.
Yeah.
This is nice, though. The buff and the trade. Oh.
Just disgusting. Finally, we're getting to see what the deck was actually intended to do. As the follow-up of Coin Renew on it as well. Honestly, I don't mind the look of it. I guess you do need to be a little bit conscious of your health total. You can't just go full aggro. But nonetheless, this is crazy strong.
Right. And with no weapon pre-equipped, it's going to take a lot for a Blade Dance to get to get through this. This is going to be require maybe a few too many cards to get up to 9.
I think it's possible, though. I think, obviously, next turn it's not going to happen, but the turn after, if he can hit, like I said, Marrow Slicer, Twin Slice, Chaos Strike, it's possible here for s8ris to still pull this one back.
Oh, it's definitely possible, but like you said, because it's not likely in any way next turn, unless it's an extremely specific hand, then yeah, No Hands... The question is, does No Hands just gain too much of a lead if this skull is played now?
Okay, Soulshare is fine. 0 mana for the Shard Shatter is pretty good too.
It is, but I think he really wanted a Marrow Slicer there.
Yeah.
That would have been perfect.
I mean, to be fair, given the next turn is probably Soul Shard plus Blade Dance, I think the Soulshare and Shard Shatter actually work into that pretty beautifully, just to be able to guarantee you can clear whatever comes down.
You are right, it does a lot of damage, actually. Like Lapidary, Sheer, Shatter, not necessarily in this order, and Blade Dance, yeah, okay. But then he just embalmings them both, and they're just going to come back in a while anyway.
Yeah, I mean, in quite a while, though, right? Because then they would come back as reborn minions. As dormant minions.
Yeah. This would be hilarious, though. Double embalming on these, yeah. And then they die, and next turn he plays Raise Dead and plays more. just an army of Homunculus Taunt. This is where we're going to see No Hands use these conscriptors to get some value from the lackeys, right? This is effectively 2 lackeys he's going to get, which again can make pretty high impact. Because No Hands has had a great start, of course, but he hasn't had the generation going. He really wants to get hold of a dragon, I think, just for this cleric very quickly, so he can get hold of a his soul mirror.
No, there's a way.
Otherwise, outside of that, he needs these lackeys to do some work.
He needs them to do some major work, because this turn for s8ris, I think it's just trade into... I mean, go face, actually, I guess, if you want. I guess it's not actually super clean. It's 1 health too high for the 5+3 of Soul Shard plus Shard Shatter to clear it off. So, trade into the 5/9, Soul Shear this, Shard Shatter, Lapidary, Blade Dance. It's actually just perfect. This is so clean.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
It's
a board that I'm not going to say should not have been able to be cleared, but really it was pretty clean. The exact cards he got from the skull helped out a huge amount there, and now No Hands getting Goblin Lackey and Witchy Lackey, arguably the worst combination of lackeys he could get there.
Yeah, it's disaster town. Like, Goblin Lackey can do something maybe to try and pull this back, I suppose. But man, this is just absolutely brutal. Like, the deck here did exactly what it was supposed to do. It hit the 1-drops, hit the buff, hit even a huge psych split as well. It was perfect in those first few turns. And still, it's just been blown out of the water in the mid-game.
Yeah, does he have to, like, rush, trade, then, like, Gift of Luminance it as well? It's like, so, is NoHandsGamer that far behind that he has to just chuck as much on the board as possible here? So we're just going to get some additional card draw with the help of this mana feeder, and that's even more damage. I think this is the point where s8ris just goes, you know what? I'm going to ignore your minions, and I'm going to hit you in the face pretty hard. Look at this hand.
Oh, do you think so?
Oh, 100%. Look how much damage he has.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of tempted, because he has Shard Shatter. I guess it destroys a lot of your own board. I was going to say Shard Shatter plus Soul Share, and then you still get to connect the 5 damage face.
Well, my problem with that is it just gives NoHandsGamer more lackeys, whereas next turn he can only get 2.
Fair enough.
Right?
Fair enough.
And look at the damage. Twin Slice. There's the glaive bound.
Yeah.
There's war blades. He already had 3 damage on his face as well. He puts the opponent to 6, and he has 6 in hand. This looks really strong to me.
No, you're absolutely right. I think I was just a little bit too cautious, but with 1 Apotheosis down anyway, even if that could come down, I still don't think that would be enough to pull things back for NoHandsGamer, yeah.
Heal for 4, but you just have like 6. And that would require the board to be cleared as well, right? There's just too many questions to be asked here.
Minions, take to the streets.
I mean, it's a big push back onto the board, to be fair to him. The Goblin Lackey is premium here as well. Allows him to completely clear things up, even sneak in a hero power. I mean, think if he wants to as well.
Yeah, he can Kaj Lackey, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, Kaj the 5/4 and Lackey.
Yeah.
More bothered about value instead of the counter push. Maybe he's actually digging for Titanic.
That's fair, I suppose.
Right now, unless he evolves with the Witcher Lackey into a Taunt, he doesn't have a way to put something in the way, so to speak, as the Imprisoned Homunculus would, of course, be dormant for a couple of turns first.
Indeed, he can survive still for the turn. Interesting that the Witcher Lackey wasn't played there to just try and find anything.
Yeah, s8ris needs 1 damage, and was that a... Yes, it was Marrow Slicer, I thought it was, and that's just going to be the game, that's going to be the series. s8ris fought back. It was a scrappy one, but it was enough. And now s8ris is going to go up to 4-0 in the Swiss for this Masters Tour so far. Strong performance there, honestly. I think NoHands played well, but this Priest is leaving something to be desired, although you do have to say that that double homunculus looked super powerful. It was just exactly available for s8ris early enough to get the job done and start pushing forward. So much damage in that game.
Yeah, I think if we're going to be generous here to NoHandsGamer, taking a look at his lineup a bit more cohesively, I think it's quite clearly an anti-warrior strategy he's gone for. Just a slightly different approach to get there than some of the other players have gone for. He's got Paladin, he's got Druid, which is a fairly decent matchup. He's got a Teched Warrior with Sticky Finger thrown in there as well, and Rattlegore in order to try and pressure his opponent as well. Obviously, plus the Priest, which I think is going to be fairly good against Warrior. It's just clearly not meant to go up against Mage or Rogue, and clearly didn't feel that good against Demon Hunter, at which point you really need to ask the question, why aren't you just playing the full anti-warrior list? If you're playing a Priest that's so bad against the rest of the field, maybe he disagrees. Maybe he thinks the Priest got a bad draw there, or his opponent got especially lucky. Whatever excuses you can come up with. From our perspective, though, it just looked absolutely miserable.
Yeah, it was just, honestly, for both players and for different reasons, it was just a tough series, right?